Your whole life actually is less exciting when you are addicted to porn.
We've seen that with multiple addictions, from methamphetamine to cocaine, others, and now with pornography addiction.
Mental health treatment center called Origins Recovery spent the last 12 months analyzing Google searches related to porn.
Watching porn and what that does to you in life is that like you are so used to this high level of dopamine that everything else feels dull in comparison, not just sexually. That's why it leads to a lot of depression, right? A lot of mental health issues, because nothing feels as exciting. Is because the dopamine just can't get as high because it's so used to this incredibly unnatural high of dopamine that you get from watching that video.
My name is Deep. I'm the host of It's Not That Deep. Now, before we jump into this episode, which you're not going to want to miss at all, I want to take a second to tell you my story a little bit. So after graduating college, I worked for the federal government of Canada. Not only that, I worked in the pensions department. I know, super exciting stuff, right? Now, I was the king of water cooler talk, super long breaks, and staring at the clock waiting for my shift to end. That was my life, and I absolutely hated it. The whole time I kept asking myself, is this it? Isn't there something bigger, something out there that I actually truly care about doing? So eventually, after a ton of internal debate and quite frankly, a lot of friends gassing me up to start some kind of show, I decided to launch It's Not That Deep. Now that was back in 2019. The whole premise of the show was to connect with people who I find interesting and to learn how they are realizing their potential in whatever domain. Now, I also wanted to have some kind of show where I could document my journey, something where, you know, if I have kids or grandkids one day and they ask, you know, what I was doing at 26, 27, I'd tell them, go to YouTube, check it out. So that single decision flipped my life upside down because it led me to meeting a bunch of incredible entrepreneurs, CEOs, athletes, artists, and everything in between. From there, connecting with the right people led me to starting my own media company. And that's when I met my current business partner, Jamie Lee, through this podcast. So then in 2021, we launched Deep Social Brands. Fast forward to now, we've done over $2.5 million in sales. We've traveled the world, moved countries, built teams, built incredible relationships, and we've gotten to film content all around the world. Like right now, I'm in Panama. We're filming content with one of our clients. And the crazy part is I don't even have 1,000 subscribers on YouTube yet. But none of those vanity metrics or anything like that actually truly mattered, because putting out content changed my life. I'm telling you, if you just commit to hitting publish, I guarantee it'll change your life in ways that you can't even fathom. And that's why Jamie and I decided to launch putoutcontent.com to help you realize your potential through putting out content. And no, don't worry, it's not just another agency. So if you are serious about growing online, connecting with people around the world, and living the life of your dreams, and if you're tired about guessing what to post, what the strategy should be, how to get your videos edited, how to even film them, or just generally how to put out content, head over to putoutcontent.com. You'll thank me later. But for now, let's get to this episode of It's Not That Deep. Jackson Hightower, welcome to the It's Not That Deep podcast, brother.
Hey, thank you, brother.
You're a sex coach, a master of male performance. It's been really cool to watch you grow, no pun intended, the last few years working together. And I genuinely feel like you're doing God's work, man. You're saving dead bedrooms everywhere, and you're helping men with something that is just not talked about, is not taught. It's almost this taboo thing, but it's on all of our minds all the time. Talk to me about what sexual mastery is to you.
It's essentially having the capacity, the skills, the knowledge, the discipline to be able to control and harness your energy as a man, your sexual energy, your life force, we like to call it, and actually be able to utilize it in ways that are beneficial for you and not ways that are like leaking energy, right? So like, are you in control of it or is it in control of you, right? That's kind of how I think about it. A lot of men out there, they are not in control of that sexual energy. They don't have that dominance, right? It's controlling them, whether it's through porn, through dating apps, through OnlyFans, leaking their sexual energy in a variety of different areas. So my whole thing is like, yo, you got to get in control of that shit, right? And how do you do it, right? And so that's kind of what I've been sharing, what I've been, preaching to guys is like, you got to own that shit, right? You don't want anything in your life owning you, right? What other area of your life do you want owning you? None. Right? But for men, right? Like we work out at the gym, we read books, we listen to podcasts for our mind, we go work and make money. But like this area, it's just leaky energy, man. And it's seeping into our culture and our society, and it's making men weaker, less confident, right? They're not developing actual real skills because they don't need to, because they have everything on their apps, right? And so you have a very interesting time right now. So yeah.
Did you always have these skills, or was this something yourself that you had to develop?
No, I didn't. I had to develop it. Losing my virginity was probably the worst sexual experience I've ever had. It was also the quickest sexual experience I've ever had. No, but what I will say is this: I've always had discipline. So I started doing martial arts when I was 4 years old. I was a black belt by the time I was 7.5.
And
I
what?
did Taekwondo. So I did martial arts for 3 hours a day for about 4.5 years. I was like, I don't know what it was. I was super precocious. I was super disciplined in it. And I took that discipline, right, playing sports in college and, always having a teacher, always having a coach, always having a master, and realizing that, like, when I had some bad experiences in the sexual realm with women who were a little bit older when I was in college, it gave me a huge wake-up call. I was like, oh, shit, like, they're right. I actually don't know what I'm doing, right? And instead of getting angry and frustrated and, like, F her or whatever, I kind of was like, yo, she's probably right. I've never learned this stuff, right? Because I learned Taekwondo from a master, right? For many, many years. I learned baseball from coaches. Like everything that I've ever done, you have a teacher, you have a guide, you have a sensei, except this area.
Yeah. Most people learn it from porn or from movies or from media or Instagram or,
Yeah.
And like
we didn't have Instagram back then, right? There was no Instagram.
Yeah.
But like you're learning from all the wrong places. Yeah. And so if you're learning from a movie that's paid actors to do certain things, you're all the wrong moves. That's what I say, like porn is all the wrong moves and it's all the wrong thought process. And it gives men performance anxiety, feelings of less than-ness, like, am I enough, right? Like not everyone's LeBron James in basketball,
right?
Like, yeah, you can dribble a ball, but like LeBron James has extraordinary skills. The guys that are picked for those movies, it's because they're hung, they're big, they can do certain things that most normal guys can. So it gives guys these complexes.
And they've got they're on drugs.
Yeah,
there's a lot of crazy editing going on.
Yeah, it's a film set,
Absolutely, man. And so I want to touch on one thing before we'll definitely dive into like the porn and all these things. But you talk about a few bad experiences. Is there any you can share? Like which one was the like, oh shit, I gotta go back and like dive into this?
I think so. When I was in college, I was intimate with an older woman my freshman year, and she was more experienced. She had been in college for 3.5 years by the time we had connected. And one of the biggest issues that I faced was like, was premature ejaculation, right? So you're with a girl, she's really hot, you're younger, there's all this sort of like, intensity and pressure to perform in the moment. And, you never really learn how to just relax into the situation. And so there's times where like we'd be hooking up and I go super quick, right? And it's embarrassing.
Yep.
It's not cool. You're not a stud, and she has the pick of the litter with all the other guys that were in school, and she's choosing to be with me. And then I'm not like measuring up, right? I'm not like performing, right? In a way that like is pleasing to her. So there are situations that happen like that. And then also some situations where like, you try to go down on a girl and like, either she didn't want to, or she had issues with it, or she didn't like know how to give you feedback, and you're just sort of fumbling around.
Yeah.
And part of my personality was like, I always liked to know exactly what I was doing and be good at it. So whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's kind of why I am here today, right? That's what made me who I am. I never wanted to get that feedback, right? It's like, I got to do something about this.
Yeah.
So where do you go, right? Well, like they don't exactly teach it in school. They didn't teach it in sex ed.
No, and it would be honestly like a little weird for your parents to teach you or a teacher to teach you. Like it almost doesn't seem appropriate, but someone has to. And so I'm really happy and I think I could say this, proud that you've stepped into this role.
Thank you.
And I genuinely do believe it's saving many lives and probably creating many lives too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one thing that I do kind of want to dive in there, I mean, I by no means am a sex master, sex coach or anything like that, but I can relate with those experiences earlier in college where you talk about fumbling around. And for me personally, something that I was so insecure about, and even to this day, like it lives in the back of your mind of like, I don't want to say convinced, but you have gotten a girl to let go and be intimate with you in the most intimate way possible. And you as a man, like your role and what you are taught is like where a lot of your value comes from, whether that's true or not, but like a lot of it is tied to how you are going to satisfy this person. And so something that like I struggled with a little bit early on was like keeping it up. Like, and it wasn't like I wasn't young, vital. I was an athlete. I had no problem with it when I was on my own, but there were certain situations where like I'd get like some kind of performance anxiety or whatever you call it. Talk to me about that. What's the psychology behind that?
Yeah.
Gotten over it now, but back then that fucked with my, like, I was insecure as hell about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it stems from a couple of things. One, it's performance anxiety, which leads to like a cortisol release in your body, which then basically gives you a soft on, right? So you're up, you're doing your thing. Something happens in your brain or in your environment that basically tricks you into thinking you're in fight or flight mode, right? That could be the programming that you've had from watching porn when you were a kid and realizing that, oh my God, what if she's used to a guy who's bigger than I am and I'm not enough? That puts you into a fight or flight response, and you're immediately going to get in your head and you're going to go soft, right? There could be a response in the environment. There could be a smell. There could be a sound. There could be something she said that triggered you to think about a situation that you had when you were younger with a different girl, right? Yeah. That you had that same scenario. So it's performance anxiety to me it's a mix of psychological but also physiological, but it's creating this response of anxiety, stress, which is never good. Your body constricts and it tightens. That's not what you want. You actually, for a hard erection, you actually want to be fully relaxed, right? So everyone thinks that it's a hard cock, but the relaxedness of your body creates the hardness. So anytime you're tensed up, mentally, physically, emotionally, it's going to be very difficult for you to have that full blood flow. So that's what happens. So it happens quite often, and it doesn't mean you have ED. It just means that in that moment, something kind of like messed with you a little bit, right? You got in your head instead of like breathing and feeling and relaxing in your body. And that's the state where you want to get more guys to. It's like they have full control over their breath, their parasympathetic nervous system, their sympathetic nervous system. They can control, they can control those areas much better through breathing, relaxation, focus, presence, not putting so much pressure on themselves to perform, right? So that's how that works. But yeah, it's something that happens a lot, And actually, I work with a lot of guys and they're like, well, this happens. I'm like, dude, it's okay. Just do something else for a little bit of time until you relax into the moment again. Do stuff to her, give her a massage, go down on her, whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah.
So that you can then relax. Because guys have this thing that like they have to be hard for 30 minutes in a row. Guess what? That's not really how it works.
Yeah.
Like that's very, 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 very rare.
Yeah.
So I always say like, look, there's going to be moments when you're up and when you're not. There's nothing wrong, right? Sometimes they'll go be like, oh, is it me?
You're right. Oh, yeah, that's the worst.
Right, and you're like, no, girl. And I tell like, no, it's not you. Yeah. Like, it's definitely like, don't worry about it. It's all good. Let's just enjoy the experience together.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's one, like, when you say that, I think about this experience, and it's a trauma. I still I carry it with me. I don't have that issue, but like, thought about this one time in college where I met this girl, we went on a date, we end up at my place, everything's going great, I'm fired up, like, let's fucking go, let's do this thing. Again, I'm in college, I'm just excited that, she's letting me hit, dude, this is awesome. And I just, for the life of me, like, couldn't, like, get out of my head about, like, I need to I need to lay down pipe right now, like, this is it. And I was not able to. And she was like, oh my God, like, what did I do? Like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm like, no, like, it's not you, it's me. But like, literally right now, I'm sorry. But then I've also learned over time, yes, through experience and through actually going through something like that to relax, to chill, to, hey, maybe I need to relax and have a little bit more foreplay. Maybe we gotta, hey, we can do other stuff. And then through experience, through chilling out, through being present, I have found that, oh, he's working again.
Yeah.
We're all fucking good.
Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with me.
No.
But in that moment, she was so upset
Mm-hmm.
that she started crying. Now this what was supposed to be this incredible evening turned into a like, I'm getting her an Uber home and I'm here with blue balls. And like, I was like, what's wrong with me?
Right.
Is there something wrong with me? And I went down a rabbit hole myself of like trying to learn this stuff, read some books, watched some videos, like learned about some of the stuff, but I didn't have a natural Jackson back then to learn from. And so going back to it, I think one of the big things and one of the central themes of what you talk about is this cancer that is pornography. Let's dive into that. What are your thoughts on porn?
Porn is literally the worst virus and cancer that exists for men right now. Not only does it teach men all the wrong moves, but it basically precedes them for every single sexual dysfunction, whether that's premature release, whether that's porn-induced erectile dysfunction, whether that's performance anxiety, right? The three P's. You are. Not only that, it's also messing up your dopamine, right? And it's messing up your hormones. So when I talk to a lot of these, like I get thousands of DMs a week from guys, men who are addicted to porn, sometimes watching 3, 4, 5 times a day and releasing, which I find to be true story. I think 4 or 5 times a day, releasing every single time. And I'm like, wow, right? So like, but you know what? There's a lot of compassion. I get it. Men who they are triggering their bodies they're training their bodies, like habituating their bodies to need a high level of dopamine in order to have an experience where they can get erect and their arousal, right? And what happens is when you train your body to need this high of dopamine, because watching a video changes the neuroplasticity in the brain the most. It's the highest form of neuroplastic change is by watching hardcore videos. Think about Playboy, right? Playboy was a static image. You still have to use your imagination, right? To create what scenario you want to create, right? And as we've gotten more into the digital age, they're basically just giving you the entire scenario and they're playing it out in a very intense, like, very direct, very intense way. And it's triggering your brain into basically being like, wow, like this is what intimacy is. And my arousal needs to get here. So what happens to men is when they are in a situation with a real woman in real life, it's usually never as intense.
It doesn't like
the dopamine doesn't get as high. So if your dopamine with the woman is at this level, your body's going to be like, oh, I need more dopamine. I need more of an intense push. I need something. And then it's not going to get as aroused. So just like you train your muscles, you train your brain, whatever it is, habituation is really, really important. And men are habituating to intense, very dramatic, very extreme forms of pornography. And that is screwing them up in every aspect of their sex lives. And it's sad. And they don't understand the long-term effects. They're just like, oh, I'm going to watch some porn. Oh, it's not that bad. The reality is it's horrific. And it's an epidemic, and it leads to a culture and a society. It leads to a culture and a society of weak men, right? Who are addicted to pixels over people.
Yeah.
And I see, as much as there are people like yourself who are fighting the good fight and trying to share this message that porn is evil and that it's draining our life force and that it's killing our dopamine receptors and everything you just talked about. Not to be cynical or whatever, but like I do see it getting worse. I see now there's VR headsets, now there's sex robots, and now there's also been a movement I've seen of like these people who like kind of hate women. And like I see all of this stuff online and it's horrifying to me. But if you were to share one message on like someone who is caught up in that trap, and I mean, you're talking about 4 or 5 times a day, like even when I was a teenager, when I was watching porn and stuff, I never did that, but like, dude, how do you get someone who's that deep in it to turn that around?
Yeah. So number one, you need to create a picture for them in their mind of what their future self is going to look like. And that future self is a man who is addicted to pixels and digital arousal, who has no natural seduction skills, who's probably addicted to OnlyFans and pay for play type of sexual experiences that involve no actual there's no gravitas to the situation. There's no like risk, right? Dating apps where there's no risk. You're just sending passive text messages to people. You're developing a man in the future who has no ability to talk to a woman in real life, who has no real world skills of how to, pleasure a woman, who has no natural seduction skills. That man probably is also not confident, lacks his own inner sort of like compass. So it's like you have to create this picture of like, if you continue doing this, then this is what you're going to look like. Do you want to look like that? Right? Because in the moment they're like, oh, I'm just like getting off. It's not that bad. And oh, this is my form of intimacy.
But it compounds.
Yeah.
Right? It starts with one
interest.
Thing,
1,000% in a negative direction, compounding interest. So you paint this picture of like, this is what your life is going to be like. You're going to be a sad, pathetic fucking loser. That's it. Right? And so if you don't want to be that, there needs to be like, okay, cool, I want to shift and change. And then you actually have to continue to do activities in real life. Number one, block all the porn from your websites and from your phone. Number two, actively engage in dopamine increasing activities. Actively engage in natural dopamine increasing activities, right? And there's a whole list of things that men can do in order to create dopamine naturally. Is it going to be as intense as watching porn? No.
But neither should it be.
Exactly, because it's not real, right? So you need to basically shut off that porn from your life entirely and then actively engage on a regular basis. Cold plunge, testicle dip, cold shower, workout, being with people, laughing, tons of meditation. So this is all stuff that I have in my app actually, where it's like men can be like, okay, here's what's going on, right? I have a hitting panic button, like shit. Like I'm thinking about watching porn. Here are the things that I can do that's going to stimulate my dopamine in a natural way. And then do that day after day after day after day. And it takes discipline. It takes effort. It takes someone being accountable to themselves, right? Being a part of a larger community, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But it's bad right now.
And it's training, right? I mean, just like anything else, you want to lose weight. Let's first realize, like, it starts first, like you said, with the mental frame of, well, if I keep going like this, I'm just going to be a fat sack of shit who hates myself, and it probably won't live long enough to, let alone get a wife, but play with my children or grandchildren, or just be a man in whatever sense, right? But then it's removing the stimulus. Get the damn potato chips, like no Doritos at the crib, right? And then from there, stacking it day after day. And your app is designed to help with that. That's incredible, man. One thing that really helped me when I was watching porn years ago, I was listening to this podcast by this guy named Solbra. And he's got an awesome, like, kind of esoteric, very like raw food. Like, he goes very, very off the deep end with it, but I loved his content. I'd be listening to his podcast. And he said this one thing that stuck with me forever. And I could never go back to like porn watching deep after like this visualization. And it really stuck with me. And he's like, every time you go to like do this private thing, no one's doing it like when people are around or like talking about it, or like, we've all done it, but it's this secret, this weird like little taboo secret. But there's a reason why Pornhub makes like 60 billion, whatever the fuck that they do, right? Because everyone's doing it. Every time you go to do this habit, Picture yourself in the third person. You're in a dark room. Your face is illuminated by this screen. You're probably under the covers, whatever, and you're just fapping. Picture a third person, higher version of you, your best self, watching you in disgust.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck are you doing, bro?
Yeah.
That stuck with me, dude. I'm like, because I think about that. I would have thought, like, think about that every time I like, oh, dude, let me just, I've had a stressful day. Or let me just release some of this tension. Or like, I've got this going on. Or like, this girl rejected me. Or whatever reason it is for me to end up in that space of like, let me just get a, quick bust. Picturing that helped me a lot. I was like, let's go do 50 push-ups.
Absolutely.
Like, let's go for a run. Let's go. Because now it's like an actual identity shift. It's like, am I the type of person who is doing this thing in secret?
Yep.
Right.
Yep, that's beautiful. And that's exactly what it is. And you probably were motivated by that, right? Some people need more and more and more aggressive ways of looking at themselves. But like, that's a perfect example, right? What am I doing with myself? What am I doing with my time? What am I doing with my energy? How do I have enough time to do this 5 times a day? Right? Like, that's not that you were, but like, that's what some guys are. So it's like, where are you putting your energy in your life? Yeah. And you got to have the fucking, the inner metal and grit to be like, this is not what I want to do with my life anymore. Right? And some people have that on their own. Some people need to be hit over the head with it. Sometimes they need a crazy life situation to happen. And, but whatever it is that gets there, like, that's the whole point, is you have to find that rock bottom. Because it is an addiction, like heroin is an addiction, like pharmaceutical drugs and oxy is an addiction. Like, it's the same thing that it does to your brain, right?
And you know what I noticed when I did get off of that? I did find, like, I didn't know this. Now that you're saying it, I can go back and think like, oh yeah, actually this is what was happening, I guess, like scientifically or whatever, chemically. But it's like, things didn't feel as interesting anymore. Even if I was with a girl initially, it was like, man, like, this isn't hitting like the same, because the stuff that I was watching was hitting the exact way I wanted it, the way I wanted to do it. And even when I was with a girl, there'd be times where I'd be like, man, like, I want to do things that I kind of can't really do. I just met this girl type of thing. But then you start to ask yourself questions like, well, why? But over time, as you get more, you have more experience with the real dopamine, the real pleasure and beautiful experience of being intimate with someone that you actually really care about, and you have this beautiful dance. And it's not even just about penetrative sex. Sometimes it's like literally cuddling, it's hanging out. Dude,
oxytocin and dopamine gets released when you cuddle. Like, that's the cuddle hormone.
I would start to feel like naturally hornier with so much less. Over time, it like shifted to like, you had the smell of a woman, brushing past her, like the tiniest touch. Those things would excite me again. And I was like, whoa, I just feel this like virility. I don't know if that's the word. Like, I just feel like, woof, like just a woman. Like, it's just such a beautiful gift from God. Whereas like before, I almost had this like negative relationship with like what a woman was, because by its very nature, porn is like objectifying, like actually creating, not just objectifying in whatever sense, like actually making this person an object for my pleasure, but like rewiring and reframing that of like, hey, this is like this delicate flower that is allowing me to dance with her, let's just say. Even a dance, even a kiss would be special. And like, dude, it should be. Like, you know what I mean? But we've lost that. And I feel so strongly about this. And that's why I love your content. I love, everything that you put out. It's like you're shouting from the rooftops, there is another way. And there is this other way of having this dynamic with women that couldn't be, or men, whatever you're into, like, that is this beautiful dance. That's my point here, is like resetting the dopamine resets what's special. Porn does
Absolutely.
the absolute opposite of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Your whole life actually is less exciting when you are addicted to porn. Because dopamine doesn't just happen when you're with a woman. Dopamine is what happens when you're in any situation in your life where you're supposed to experience joy and arousal and fun and engagement. It's like a lead blanket. You know, when you go get an x-ray or something like that, they put this lead blanket over you. Watching porn and what that does to you in life is that like you are so used to this high level of dopamine that everything else feels dull in comparison, not just sexually. That's why it leads to a lot of depression, right? A lot of mental health issues, because nothing feels as exciting, is because the dopamine just can't get as high because it's so used to this incredibly unnatural high of dopamine that you get from watching that video. So that's, I mean, it's a beautiful expression. The way you shared it is exactly right. There is another way. Life becomes more beautiful. It becomes more open. It becomes more complete. It becomes more aroused. It becomes more fun, engaging, like all of those things.
And like you said, it's not just sex. Sometimes it's like smelling the trees, going for a walk, just the sunlight hitting your skin. Like the most simple things become like you feel alive again. How long, generally speaking, I know it's case by case, but generally speaking, how long does it take to go from, let's say you're not the 5 times a day guy, but you watch it like once a day, twice a day, something like that. How long does it take when you've decided, hey, okay, cool, I'm making a change? How long does it take to get to a place where you can enjoy those little things?
Yeah. I would say you're looking at 3 to 6 months, realistically. Like if you've been watching porn for a long time, everyone asks me, how long will it take me to get to the place where I want to be again? Everybody's different. But what I can say is this: the longer you've been watching and the more times you've been watching and the more times you ejaculate while you watch, the longer your period of recovery will be, right? And so if you have a small problem and it's not that big of a deal, you can very quickly get out of that. All right? And I recommend to men who have a serious problem that they need to go on a 90-day minimum, 3-month minimum, like nofap. So no porn, no touching, no nothing.
Wow.
Hardcore. Because that's going to get you in a place where, and it's, by the way, it's just like a drug addiction. You know, you're going to have withdrawals.
You go to detox. You're going to go through rehab. Exactly.
You're going to have detox reactions. You're going to have a challenging time at first because you are so fucking addicted to it and it's so readily available, you know?
Talk to me about nofap, because I have, I will say, I have 50-50 opinions on this, but I have not been, I don't think I've ever been to a place in my life where it's been like that bad that I gotta completely stop. I still masturbate and I still enjoy being with women. However, I see that there can be value for people in like taking a break, but 90 days, the longest I've gone is 3 weeks. 3 weeks. And for me, and this is like kind of weird to share, sorry mom, but you know, when I was traveling, the first time I went solo traveling in Europe, I went nofap because I basically had to. I was staying in hostels and I was like, I'm not going to be that guy in the upper bunk of a bed just like I'm not doing it, bro. I refuse to, like, you know, I'm not gonna, these are like my new friends, you know, this is a quick way to like fuck that up. So basically I'm like, all right, let's just do this 3 weeks. Like, how hard can it be? And, again, super weird to share, but like at a certain point I woke up with like busted. Like I had like a wet dream. I couldn't do it anymore. Right. In a roundabout way, what I'm asking is like, is it even realistic to never release, to never touch yourself, to not masturbate at all?
I am not a proponent of nofap in general, right? So there's 2 ways that I think about it. Nofap is a tool that you can use if you are addicted to porn or addicted to sex and you need to cut that shit out, as a tool 30, 60, or 90 days of nofap to get your body back to a more normalized state. That is the only time that I really recommend nofap. I recommend mindful masturbation and edging because, as you said, your body is releasing. right? The substance, right? It needs to come out regularly, like from a guy. Younger guys more so than older guys. What I advocate for are mindful masturbation, where you are aware of what you're doing and then you are edging. So say you do it 10 times a week, you're 22 years old, 2 times a day, hopefully not to porn, because you have a lot of that energy going, right? And you only release maybe 5 of those times. So you're at a 50% rate, right? At 55 out of 10 times, you would actually release. The other 5 times, you are mindfully masturbating and practicing edging, which is basically you build up that energy and then you cycle that energy up so that you don't release it. And that energy makes you more powerful, gives you more creativity, gives you more drive, more focus. So not into nofap. I know guys like Mantak Chia who are super masters, have done it for years at a time. He's an anomaly, just like LeBron James is an anomaly in basketball. It's just very rare that you'd find that. I don't think it's necessary, and I don't think it's pragmatic or realistic for people in our culture to do stuff like that. It needs to get out of your body. And I advocate for a way that you're doing it that comes out of your body that is actually, that you are in control of, that you're not leaking that energy out. You're not watching porn. You know exactly what you're doing. And you have a whole protocol around it, which is like, cool. If I do it twice a day, maybe I'll release once. The other time I'm going to edge. Boom. That's how I approach it. And it's much more, it's easier for men. The whole point of my entire business and the reason why I exist doing this is because I want to make this stuff practical and realistic for men. You've like doing nofap for a long period of time. Guys are like, oh my God, I felt this energy, whatever. It's like, of course you do for a period of time. But then can you, like, if you don't use it, you lose it. Why aren't you exercising that guy downstairs mindfully, right? You don't go to the gym for 3 months. Well, okay, what happens? You atrophy. You don't have that same habituation of your muscles. Your muscles don't know what the fuck they're doing. They're not getting big. They're not being maintained.
Yeah.
Same exact thing downstairs. Exercise that guy. Go to the gym. Do mindful masturbation. Practice with yourself. Get that guy so in your power that you know exactly what the fuck is happening. So when you are in those moments with another partner, you know how to read the situation because you're there, right?
That's a powerful frame, bro, because my thing is, I think people, especially on social media, sensationalize these things and make it so black or white, right? And like, yeah, those like Taoist principles of love and these books, like I'll start reading them and stuff, and I'll just get overwhelmed with this like feeling of like, damn, dude, I don't know, like I still like to, you know, once in a while, like fucking, yeah, you want to actually release. It actually makes sense to. Like, I don't want to, but like at the same time, I do see a lot of value in what you're talking about with the mindful masturbation. And I have been edging for years, focusing on trying to get better at prolonging and being more present with my energy. But I'd say I'd still struggle with, I've seen you describe having that energy then going upwards and stuff like that. I struggle with that.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how one can control their energy without releasing.
Yeah. So number one, I always come at it from like an anatomical perspective. When you are self-pleasuring, when you're masturbating, there is energy that's created around that area, sexual energy that's created, number one. Number two, there is physiological process that is also happening, right? The seminal fluid is moving through your testicles, up your vas deferens into the urethra and then out, right? So there's a process of physical fluids moving while energy is being created. So there's two things that are happening, right? When you edge, you basically need to get to the point where those fluids have not gotten so far that they're in your urethra, right? Which is going to cause this sort of blue balls type feeling, that energy of like, I went too far, right?
Now it's like, oh shit.
Then you have to release, right? Yeah. So I talk about this concept of a magic 8, right? If the 0 is when you're flaccid, 10 is when you've fully released. An 8 out of a 10 is like, you're pretty aroused. And you know that if you go a little bit further, you know that feeling like, oh, I'm going to have to go. I can't control myself anymore. You got to shut it down and start the edging practice and the breathing practice at around between a 7.5 and an 8 out of a 10, right? At that stage, the liquid the seminal fluid has not gotten so far through your, through the vas deferens into your urethra that you can't control it. You basically need to practice and you stop. You do a breathing exercise, you can hold yourself a certain way, and you essentially pause that energy, pause the fluid from moving, and then you bring the energy up in like a hard, intense breathwork type sequence, right? Have you ever, let's talk about Kundalini energy, like moving the energy from here to up, right? When you're breathing.
I know like Wim Hof type breathing, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah. Same exact thing. Yeah. You hold the kegel and you bring the energy up, that energy, right? Because it's a pulling whatever you've created up. So when I talk about, people ask about blue balls a lot. Blue balls is a function of two things. One, you went too far. You went to like an 8.5. And two, you don't know how to move that energy. It's stagnant. So it feels stagnant and heavy in that area, right?
Yeah, it has to like go somewhere.
Exactly.
It can't, excuse my, I don't know the anatomy that well, but like it can't go backwards then once it's.
Yeah, it doesn't go backwards, but it can pause, right?
Yeah.
And so like there's this feeling of, I need to move the energy bubble that I've created. Think of like an energy bubble that's created around your cock when you're doing this masturbation, and you bring that up energetically through the breath, and then you also pause the liquid from moving by stopping your sexual activity so that you're not going too far.
Interesting. I never knew about the breath side of it, and like maybe I got to take your course on that, because actually I will take it because that's so interesting to me. Because for me, I think what my version of edging has been, I'll actually stop at around a 6, and I'll actually stop all the stimulus, and I will breathe, but I'll almost like distract myself and then get back to it, and then I'll build up to maybe a 7. And then, but then I'll stop. And then I just kind of like, I'm not going to say get bored, but I've never experienced like a full internal orgasm. Is that a thing?
It's definitely a thing. When you edge, it doesn't always happen the same way. And it doesn't necessarily feel the same way as when you release externally.
Okay.
What I tell guys is this. If you can practice edging and taking that energy and cultivating it through self-pleasure, and then you're able to bring that energy up a couple times, right? You are going to feel more powerful, more energized, more focused, more driven. You're going to have more magnetism around you. That energy that you create here, right? Think about it. It can create life, right? That energy that you're creating, the cultivation of that energy there, right?
Yep.
So yes, sperm is an actual physical thing, but it's also an energetic frequency. Like when you are coming inside a woman and trying to have a kid, you're giving her the fluid, you're also giving her the energy of whatever it is that's happening, right? When you release. You basically take that energy ball that you're creating and you just suck it up and you bring it up to the top, right? Because this is where the enlightenment capacity of it happens, right? Where you feel this energy and you can go into the situation and be like, wow, whenever I'm with, someone in intimate experience and I edge, I don't get tired. I don't get lethargic. I stay focused. I can go again in a little while. I have more power, more energy, more connectivity. There's just so many things that happen that are better than the little intense feeling, right, that you get, which is intense, of when you release.
Yeah.
So you have to, again, you create the picture of, well, how do I want to feel after this scenario? What kind of a man do I want to be right now? Do I want to be a sleepy puppy, which is what I call it when after a man comes?
Yeah.
Turns into a sleepy puppy, right? Like we're tired, you roll over, basically useless. You don't want to engage in any sexual activity. You don't want to go down on her. You just become completely satiated and content, which is what prolactin does, right? Prolactin, lactate, is the hormone that's released when and went through women's breasts to their children. Well, when after kids breastfeed, what happens? They go to sleep because they're filled with prolactin. It reduces your testosterone, it reduces your drive, it makes you tired, it makes you sleepy. Why do I want that? I don't want that all the time. Occasionally when you're in a sexual experience, yes, you want to release. You want to feel that release because that's what life is about. It's about balance.
Yeah.
You just talked about that. Nofap versus nofap. You got to have balance. Sometimes I want to release. But the vast majority of the time, especially as I've gotten older, I've realized that like I am a better partner. I'm a better person. I'm a better communicator. I have more energy. I have more focus. I have more drive when I don't release. And so it's about experiencing yourself when you don't release and then comparing that to how you are after you do release.
Interesting.
Man 1, man 2. Which man do you want to be in this scenario?
Wow. That's so powerful because it's so tied to, again, being present and also thinking of who you want to be in the future and creating that in the now through cultivating your life force. And I think that's really, really beautiful. And I don't think no one ever teaches you that, dude. You just kind of just gotta like learn. I'm probably gonna say that a million times on this episode, but it's because I genuinely do believe that what you're doing is so important, because there is nuance in all these things. And maybe that doesn't make for the most viral social media clip, although I will say, like, I think you've done a pretty good job of getting around that. But in a setting like this where we can actually talk about this stuff, right? There is nuance. There are times, let's say you're with your partner of multiple years, and like, you haven't seen them in a couple weeks or a few months or something, for some reason, whatever, and you have this experience, this sexual, intimate experience that's beautiful. There is a time and place where, you do want to just completely let go. But in my learnings and like in my, I guess you could say, experience in this realm, there's almost more power in not giving that up all the time, because in almost like the yin-yang fashion, like the woman is the one who is like completely letting go and like submitting to this experience, while the man is very much in control of it. So being able to harness that and control it just makes you that much better and that much more desirable. And it makes when you do release that much more special.
Agreed. 1,000%.
Interesting.
1,000%.
So talking about that just a little bit further, I'm just genuinely like very interested in this stuff. So when it comes to relationships, right? I'm sure you get this question all the time. People get comfortable with each other, and when it comes to actual like penetrative sex, and we're talking about different positions and stuff, I hear there's this whole community online of people talking about like not being satisfied with their sexual life, right? On Reddit and these forums and whatever, people telling all these stories about not having a fulfilling sex life. How do you keep things interesting and spicy and fun once that kind of initial honeymoon phase has worn off from a sexual standpoint specifically?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you have to continue to cultivate whatever your partner's love languages are regularly. Most people get complacent. They lose the excitement, they lose the fun, they don't go on dates anymore, they don't make things interesting, they're not giving massage, they're not doing physical touch, they're not activating their partner's buttons, right? We talked about this concept of like responsive desire, right? So like a woman's desire is not necessarily physical, it's emotional, right? So you have to click a lot of different buttons, right, in order to get her into that place. I think as we get into relationships and things become consistent, mundane, we kind of don't continue to cultivate that. We don't continue to date our partners, right? We're in the bathroom at the same time together. We do a lot of these activities which are pretty like unsexy, and we do them together, right? Where I was advocate like keep 2 separate bathrooms, like don't change it from your partner. Try to activate and do things that are going to keep the mystery alive.
Keep
right?
the mystery.
That's important.
Say, yeah.
So that's part of it. And then part of it is, when you get used to your partner, you have to, as a man, we are the ones that are leading the sexual experience for the most part. We need to become better at activating and our dominant, not subdom, but just like being more dominant, being more confident, trying new things, expressing new things with our partners, right? If you're in a situation where you're as a guy, you expect the same thing over and over again, it's going to get boring, and your partner's going to be like, okay, cool. You got to go to a different place. You got to try it in a different area. You got to go on a vacation. You got to do it in an environment that's like a little bit more novel, right? And also you have to recognize like where your partner is at. Where is the woman at on her cycle? We as men need to pay more attention to where our women are at so that we can then activate them better, right? How many men know there are 4 parts of a woman's cycle every month?
None.
Right? How many men know that the actions, the words, the type of sex, the type of exercise that woman, the type of food that she's eating, but that woman needs to change and shift for her to be optimally available for you, right? A woman who's ovulating, she's going to be the most game for sexual activity. A woman in her luteal phase, somewhat. A woman in her, follicular phase, maybe not so much. And so we have to get smarter, right? Like, it's not just to say, oh, doesn't want to have sex with me anymore. We need to actually pay attention. Where is she at? What's going on in our lives? How do I cultivate this? And continue to create polarity, but doing it intelligently, right? I would educate, I used to, a lot of my guy friends like, yo, get on your girl's cycle app so that you know where she's at. Because guess what, guys? We don't understand that women are totally different from us. They're completely different creatures. They are beautiful and fucking wonderful and amazing. They function very differently than we do, right? We are used to like, well, I'm ready. I want to go.
Yeah.
Doesn't work, especially when you get in that long-term relationship. We have to get smarter. You have to get more clued in, and you have to act accordingly. So it takes more work. It takes more effort, right? And as we get in relationships, sometimes we don't want to work as hard.
In the spirit of wanting, as a man, again, wanting to create an experience, you talk about, sex starts out of the bedroom. I think I understand that concept very well, but I do want you to explain it. But the second part of my question there is, when you want to do new things, spice it up, mix it up, whatever, I have struggled with, do I have that conversation during? Or is this like a specific conversation we have outside of like an intimate setting that we almost like plan for, and then I drive this experience? I've always not always, but like there's been situations where I'm like, well, like if we're having a conversation about this during it, kind of takes us out of it, and it kind of becomes like logical brain now, and that's not what we need right now.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So there's two types of conversations to have, right? One is the before conversation, where whether it's getting into kinks or fetishes or other things that you want to try and explore, finding a time when you're both relaxed, where you're both connected, we don't have anything else to worry about, and just like asking those questions, like, oh, have you ever tried this? Is something that you might be interested in? And then taking the notes, right? Because you might have desires that she's like a complete no on, right? It's like red, green, or yellow, right? So green is like a go, red is like a no-go, and yellow is like contextual, depending on how she feels. Always have those conversations outside the bedroom, the hottest part. And then when you get in the bedroom, you take those answers and you get whatever you need to get, or you get in the mindset, and then you bring those in, and then you bring them in, in a way that is related to like your guys' experience, right? Where it's like context dependent. Some women are just ready to go and explore. Some people might take more time. It just depends on your relationship with her. But I always say, like, anything that you can do that is not going to get her into her analytical brain during the experience is much better.
Yeah. Then she can step into her feminine.
She can just stay there.
So we talked a lot about kind of some more of your philosophies around sex, porn, ED, that type of stuff. But there's another side of it that you have kind of gone through a journey of learning about, which is medicine and supplements that you can take that also help you with performance. Talk to me about how that journey started.
So I've been an athlete my whole life, right? When I was in high school, I had an amazing goalie coach who was this French guy. Incredible shape, older, probably like late 50s, but just would kick everyone's ass in the gym. And so he actually created this wonderful program for us to learn about healthy eating and processed foods and soda and all this sort of shit. So I started not having soda and, processed foods and junk food probably when I was in high school. And that was something that stayed with me. I've been interested in herbs and natural medicines for my entire life. I've been a person who's not into pharmaceuticals for my whole life, unless it's absolutely necessary. So when I launched this, this brand, this concept was like, how do I educate and share information with guys to help them win, right? In all aspects of their life, but especially in like the sexual health realm. But then also, I see so many men these days who are addicted to pharmaceutical drugs. and in order to get an erection. And I was like, listen, I've studied Asian, culture. I've studied African culture. I've studied South American culture. Every single region has herbs that are specifically geared towards blood flow, towards like allowing the kidney and the liver to function better, which essentially helps with blood flow, helps with nitric oxide production. And so I basically was like, look, when I launch this brand, I want to have the opportunity for men to take herbs that actually work and are effective, that don't allow them so that they don't need to rely on pharmaceutical drugs. We live in a culture, Deep, that is so heavily ingrained with taking pharmaceutical solutions. And I say solutions because they're not actual solutions. They're Band-Aids.
Band-Aids.
And we are the only country in the world, aside from New Zealand, that allows for pharmaceutical companies to advertise on television. We are bombarded every single day with ads for Hims and Roman and Blue Chew and Viagra and Sildenafil and Cialis and all of these pills that yes, like can potentially help you get an erection in the moment, but they're completely ignoring the underlying cause. So like Western medicine is amazing for like acute issues and major surgeries and the crazy technology that we've developed. But if you ask someone to like heal from like an actual systemic issue in their body, Western medicine is the last place I would ever go to find that. Right? You go to Ayurveda, you'd go to Eastern cultures, you'd find other solutions that actually focus on whole body health, right? The reliance on pharmaceutical, it's predatory, right? You have these companies now that are gearing their UGC ads towards young kids. They're promoting Cialis as like a blood flow booster for the gym. Anything to sell a fucking product, dude. It is so bad. It's predatory. It's ugly. It's disgusting. And they're making millions and millions and millions of dollars, and they don't really give a shit, right? Because all they want to do is make money on their generic pills. And they're doing a brilliant job of it, right? Because they are like, oh, it's just a Hims. You know how many guys around taking Hims don't even know what it is? They don't even know that it's generic Viagra or generic Cialis. They have no idea because Hims is branded as such because they have hundreds of millions of dollars to spend on marketing where they're basically normalizing it. Oh, I'm doing a Hims. Dude, you're 25 years old and you need Viagra to have sex? You have a fucking problem, right? And that problem is not going to get solved by you taking more Viagra.
No, and then you probably need more of it.
Yeah, well, there's a point where you need more of it, or there's a point where it stops working. You either need more of it or it stops working over a period of time, and you get this dependency on it, which is a massive psychological dependency. Because I have taken them before back when I was younger, and I know what it feels like when you take it, and it's very, very, very extra. It's just a fact if it works for you. But and you start laying it down like with that extraness, and then you all of a sudden stop, your girl's like, what's going on? What's happening? Why can't you perform the same way you did before? And you become dependent upon that because it fills your ego as well. So my challenge with the business has always been, how can I find products that are effective, right? That work, that aren't going to affect guys negatively the way that pharmaceutical drugs do, but they'll still feel a felt sense. And so, I've got formulas that I use for the past couple of years. I'm actually launching 2 new products in April, which they're in the lines of Herbal Viagra and Herbal Cialis, and you can feel them, and they work and they're effective, and they're not going to have any negative, effects on your body, but they'll affect your body in a systemic way, the way that it's supposed to.
Are you supposed to take it like when you are doing the act, or is it more like you take it daily and it improves your circulation and therefore? So
no, great question. So one product you take daily and it helps lift the foundation. And then one product you take about 60 minutes before the act. And it's sort of like that 1-2 punch to get guys into a place naturally with natural medicine, right? To work with their body synergistically. That's really going to focus on helping them, perform better in the moment.
Interesting, man. And you said it's like a mix of like Chinese herbs and
yeah, there are Asian herbs and there's African herbs, and we blended them together in a very specific formula with an extraction ratio that activates the inner components of the herbs in a specific way. A lot of times what happens, guys don't really understand herbalism, so they'll hear about Fedoja or Sistanch or Tonkat, and they're like, I'm going to take this or I'm going to take that. And they take like a siloed herb. But what people don't understand is like herbalism is based off of formulas. So when you have a master herbalist, they understand this ingredient works well with this, works well with this, and works well with this. And when you blend them together, that's where the magic happens, because each of them offsets the potential negative effects, right? You always want a formula. Instead of like, oh, I'm going to take this. That could be pretty caustic to your system after a period of time. Tonkat Ali can be caustic to men's your urethras after a period of time because it's just an intense herb. It can be effective for a little bit, but then usually there's negative, ramifications. So I would say like you want a formula, you want a blend, right? You want herbs that, have been proven to work well together in the past using these ancient systems. Like, dude, Chinese medicine's 3,000 years old.
Yeah.
I don't care what you say about the country, like they know what they're doing. Ayurveda, same thing, 3,000 years old, right? Ashwagandha, these different herbs that they use as part of their health system, right? It's like stuff you take every day. The other thing that's really important to mention is that guys have an unrealistic expectation that if they take something for 3 days and they don't feel it, it's not working.
Yeah.
Right. I'm like, yo, dude, like you eat food every day, right? These herbs are like food. You take them and over a period of time, like, yeah, that's why you need a subscription to it, because you need to take it regularly, right? I'm on this. I don't need any help, but like I take my stuff because I know that it's supportive.
Yeah.
Right. I know that it's helpful. So we have to get out of this mindset that like, oh, I didn't feel it. It didn't work. That's not true, right? It's not a drug, like a Viagra or Cialis. It works differently with your body.
So you work with a master herbalist to come up with these formulas for these supplements.
Mm-hmm.
And that herbalist came up with the perfect blend. And have you noticed that it like performs just as well as, because you said you have taken the pharmaceutical ones before, it works?
Yeah. So the formula for In the Moment, it works, and it's
That's a great name, by the way.
Yeah,
That answered the question.
but the answer is yes, they work and they're effective. If you're unhealthy, you may need to take an extra capsule, right? But if you're healthy and you have great blood flow, you might need to take one. But it's all about the balance and the synergy. What I tell guys is that even Viagra only works for 40% of guys. That's a 60% failure rate.
Wow,
right?
I did not know that.
Yeah, like these products don't just work for everyone. Every body is different. Every body needs something different.
It depends on a lot of factors too. How are you treating your meat vehicle to begin with? So with that being said then, what other things are you doing to keep your body in peak performance? It's almost like you're like a sex athlete, but you're not a porn star, but you are treating yourself like a sex athlete.
Yeah.
What do you do to keep that athletic frame in check?
Yeah. So cold therapy is really great, especially testicle cold therapy, right? So if you're doing a cold plunge, obviously you get it because you're dunking in. But if you don't have access to a cold plunge, doing a testicle dip, I call it, where you take water in a bowl, put some ice in it, and just dunk your boys in there. Great for fertility. Helps keep them cold, which colder temperatures is better for testosterone production, etc.
Really?
That's a big one. So cold water therapy, I think, is great. Cardiovascular fitness is really important. And I also focus a lot on activities and exercises that are specifically geared towards what you're doing in the bedroom, right? You play like you practice. So if you're not doing exercises that are hitting the muscles that you need in the bedroom, you're going to get tired. You're going to wear out too quickly. Yeah. Your cardio is going to go down. You've been in a situation before probably where like you're doing something, it's going well, but then like you're like, oh shit, I'm fucking tired.
Yeah.
And then your blood goes to all the other parts of your body and it doesn't go here.
Or you get cramped up, or you're in like a weird position, or someone's on top of you or something, and you're like, I don't want to stop this. She needs to cross this finish line.
Exactly.
And I can't move.
Yeah.
But I can't feel my leg. So we got to address this without killing the moment. It's like, dude, it's juggling. Like, there's a lot of things that you got to do.
1,000%. I tell guys that like being a good consummate lover and really skilled in the intimate arts, or as like a sex athlete, as you said, I love that phrase. You have to do a lot of things well at the same time. Yeah. Right? It's like they're rubbing your head and grabbing your forehead, whatever it is. Like you have to You have to listen, you have to pay attention, you have to have your mental acuity up, you need your physical skills up, you need your cardio up, you need your muscle memory and your mass, you need your strength, you need to have the finger dexterity, you need to have the tongue dexterity, you need to be able to do it at the same time while also listening. It's not like all you women out there, like we want to do well for you, right? But it's actually really difficult in order to get to that place because most guys don't know what to do. And most guys aren't good at a lot of things at the same time. Just like a professional athlete is incredible at doing a variety of things at the same time, an incredible guy in bed can do that, right? He just has those skills and he's practiced them probably in some way, right? So that he's like, cool, I know exactly what I'm doing in this scenario, right? Yeah. 3 things at the same time. Boom, I got my hands up, I got my fingers, I got my ears, I got my eyes. It's a lot, being really good at oral sex. It's probably the most difficult thing to do in your intimate life.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean?
Again, TMI here, but like, earlier in my sex journey, my mouth would get tired. My jaw would lock up.
Yo, absolutely.
I'm just like, dude, I know that like I'm like only like a few minutes in here, and we got some work to do. We got a long way to go.
Yeah.
But like a physiological, so I started chewing some like mastic gum. I started like training jaw.
Exactly.
Like, yo, bro, it's a whole body fucking thing. Your fingers, dude, your fingers cramp up.
Yeah.
At a certain time, like sometimes I like this part right here, like will like seize up, and I'm like, oh, fuck, I gotta switch hands.
Exactly.
But like I'm better with one hand than the other, and so it's just like these crazy like different things. And then they're like, yo, do I switch fingers? No, I can't because the angle and like this one's not long enough to do that. I need to do it. It's like you're just fucking calculating all the time.
Exactly.
But then it's so tough to then also remain completely present, relaxed, calm, in the moment, suave. Like you also don't want to be like, you don't want to just sit there and be like, wait, just one sec. If this leg, and if this, you gotta.
1,000%. You hit the nail on the head, is that there are so many mental processes that are going on for us men when we are in intimate situations that women don't necessarily know or understand. And so can you expect that you're doing this thing, you're in this position, whatever it is, there may be a point where, okay, you may not be able to stay rock solid for 15 minutes in a row because you got a lot of shit going on, right? And you're trying to read her constantly, and you're trying to make sure your leg doesn't fall asleep, right? You're making sure that your hand has enough energy so you can do what you need to do. Yeah. All the things that you said, it's exactly what we're talking about. So it's tongue fitness, it's mouth fitness, it's jaw fitness. I have a gripper thing with my hands. I have strong as fuck hands because like I'm going on walks for an hour and I'm gripping. Like it's, shit that I do because it's important, right? But most people don't think about it. And so my whole thing is like, I want to introduce these concepts that are a little bit like left of center to help guys be like, yo, you got to kind of practice this stuff if you want to get good at it. Yeah. Not everyone's going to take it, but some guys are like, yo, I'm down for that.
I think you do such a great job with that, with your short form content. And obviously in your courses and your app and everything, it's going to go in depth. And like, I'm telling you, anyone like having like popped into your course and like seeing what you do for the Kegels and the breathing and all this stuff, like it's in depth. Like you go in there, you built a master class, right? So anyone who is listening to this and wants to learn about that stuff, or even ladies, if you want to like slide this to your man as well, that's something I do want to talk about. But I love that a lot of your content has been also centered around actual exercises that you can do. And I'm not going to lie to you, I started doing some of them. The one where it's like the one leg up and the other one like hip thrust thing. Yeah. I'm like, I need that because I get tired. Like I genuinely get tired and my hip flexors are like really weak. Yeah. And I sit a lot. So they're like shortened, and my IT bands I notice start to get, and like when you start playing around with different stuff, and like I'm a bigger guy, I like to like physical. It's fun, especially with like a smaller person. Like it's like this is fun. Yeah. It doesn't matter if they're small. You still have to have a certain like level of not just strength but mobility and like control in different positions that you can maintain while not being a selfish lover. Right? Like it's not just about like me getting off. Yeah. I have to think about you getting to where I want you to get to. And so it is really a sex athlete. We have to reframe it as it's a sport and an art at the same time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's really interesting talking about this stuff. What feedback do you get from women on your content?
Most women have very positive feedback. They appreciate the message. They appreciate the fact that I am educating men about things that they don't necessarily know about. I hear like you're doing God's work a lot. And like, I'm like, yo, like, I love that. That motivates me. That inspires me. Like, I want to hear the positive feedback because like people think that it's like necessarily easy to talk about the stuff that I talk about, right? And when I first started, it was a lot more difficult. Now it's a lot easier, but I'm also out there doing things that nobody really does. Nobody talks about this stuff, right? And so there's a bit of like...
people who talk about it, but they don't practice it.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of like people in like kind of the pickup artist game, like they're more focused on, I guess, like getting to the point where I can even have these problems, right, exactly. To begin with, and that's never been like your niche, your vertical, so to speak. But sorry to interrupt though.
No, I mean, so it's mostly positive feedback, and then obviously you'll get people that like to complain about stuff and think that I'm this or that. I don't really pay much attention to it because I have one focus and one goal, and that's basically like support the orgasm ratio globally, right? Like supporting men in their quest for like dominance and vitality with their own personal lives and their own sexual energy, and helping women get better connected to what kind of man that they are with so that they can communicate better and have better relationships.
And on that vein, like what advice do you have for women to help their man in this department? Because again, it seems like one of those things where you just don't want to talk about it until it's too late.
So the biggest piece of feedback that I have for women is you generally have no idea how sensitive a man is in this area in his life. And so you need to approach it with kid gloves, especially the sexual stuff, right? Whether that's size, performance, ability to last long, ability to like give you an orgasm. If you come at this conversation with a man in a you versus me mentality rather than an us mentality, you're going to set him back a lot, and he's going to be thinking about it, and it's going to be triggering him for the rest of his life. Talked with some guy recently, the other day, and he was talking about his current girlfriend keeps talking about his ex-girlfriend. I'm sorry, his current girlfriend is talking about her ex, and her ex was able to do all these things. And I'm like, yo, that's fucked up. Why on earth would she ever do that? Because all he's going to be thinking about is he's not enough. He's less than. How can he ever live up to this situation?
And this dude's going to be living in his head rent free.
So like shame on her because she is basically creating the situation for him, which is arguably the worst position you ever want to be in, right? Look, there's always a guy that has more money than you. There's always a guy that's got a bigger dick than you. There's always a guy that, knows how to do a certain thing better than you. That shouldn't matter, right? She's with him. And so if you're with each other, then you start from that place and you fucking support each other. You don't create this antagonistic stuff.
It's not me versus you.
Exactly. Women don't understand, and they can emasculate men very easily by kidding or being cheeky or joking with them or negging them about their bedroom stuff. And that's just not okay. If you want to have a man who's positive in his sexual energy, who is able to perform and do well and not going to be in his head the whole time, you need to not share that shit ever, right? Whatever happened with your ex is with your ex. You're not with him for a reason, right? You need to stay positive and supportive with your man and work with him at this stuff. Because anytime you're pressuring him or you're putting him at a disadvantage, you're fucking him up mentally. Men are incredibly sensitive, and you have to be kind and soft and sweet and supportive and use words of affirmation and give him compliments because men need that. Men want to be complimented, especially as it relates to this area of their lives. And women don't understand that. They withhold a lot because they're like, oh, I don't want to make him feel this or I don't want to make him feel that. If you compliment him, he's going to have more confidence, right, in how he's doing. It doesn't mean that he's doing everything right? But like find a way to be genuine and compassionate with how you communicate your desires and your needs rather than sort of like, well, you can't do this good, right? Or I wish you did this, but say it in a way that's like, can we try this together? I'd love if you tried this with me because this feels really good. It's very simple language modeling that women don't really understand, I would say, en masse. And that's what I would say, is that you have to be really much better with your communications and what you share.
As a man, if you know that you might not be performing the way that you liked or satisfying her the way that you like, how would you, beyond everything that we've talked about, like tactically or whatnot, how would you approach that conversation?
Yeah. So number one, the man has to do his own studying outside of what he's doing with his partner to understand the basic things, right? Like anatomy, high pleasure zones, the order of operations of how you connect with a woman's body, foreplay, stuff like that, right? You have to get there first on your own. So there's an element of men that they need to focus on stuff that they can learn on their own. And then when they're with the partner, there's conversations which basically, like, ideally they're had outside of the bedroom, which is like, let's talk about the things that really turn you on and that you like, right? And there both needs to be an energetic component of like, yeah, I want to work on this and I want to communicate what my desires are. Sometimes women don't even know necessarily what they like, right? So if a woman doesn't know what she likes and a guy doesn't necessarily know how to please her, that's like two people, blindfold trying to like connect in a room that's dark, right? It's very difficult to do. So having those conversations outside the bedroom is good. When you're having them in the bedroom, you try something. What I always tell guys is like, go 15 times slower than you normally would.
Yeah.
Like,
I had to learn that the hard way, man.
yeah, like we just don't understand. The clitoris has like 10,000 nerve endings, right? I think the entire penis has like 4,000 nerve endings. So on that one little spot, you have 2.5 times the amount of nerve endings. Go slow, right? Slower. You're never going to go bad when you go slow. There's never a situation where it's like, oh, like that wasn't good because you went too slow, right? Start out slow and then try different things. But like, remember, you have to have a deft touch, right? You have to be smooth with the way that you move your body. You can't be bouncing around and, hitting things like that. Like, you got to be embodied. So
you talked about the order of operations. What do you mean by that?
So number one, like, you want to stimulate a woman's brain first, right? And get the dopamine and the oxytocin firing so that she feels connected to you. And then more on the physical side of the actual practicalness of how a woman's body generally opens, you want to focus on her mouth first and the area up here, neck, shoulders, things like that, and then move to her breasts and then move downstairs. A lot of guys go straight for, the kitty. And in some scenarios that can work if she's ovulating and she's ready to rock and she's like, I want it, but the vast majority of the time, like, you want to kiss because it activates parts of her body and her hormones, and you connect through your saliva and your pheromones, and you connect in that way. And it's a very powerful experience. And then you can move down to other parts of her body and activate those. It's like, you're activating these things as you go down, right? And if you go right for the main event, you've missed all these other things. So you're not going to have that capacity and the level for her orgasmic potential if you go right there most of the time, right? You have to do everything else beforehand.
That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
When it comes to size, big insecurity for a lot of men.
Mm-hmm.
You claim there can be something done about that.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah. You can absolutely grow the size of your penis. 1,000%. You can do it 100% naturally, and you don't need any pharmaceutical drugs. You don't need any crazy contraptions. You don't need to use weights around your penis.
Oh God.
But like people do that, right? There's a whole industry around like male enhancement. The concept is really simple. Your skin is elastic and it can stretch. Just like when you get fat and overweight, your skin stretches. And if you lose all that weight, guess what happens to that skin? You still see the stretch marks, right? Very similarly, through manual manipulation, you're actually able to stretch and pull that skin through a series of exercises that I share. And then when you combine that with an oil that hydrates and moisturizes for tissue expansion, and then herbs that you can take to increase nitric oxide and blood flow to the area. But essentially, all you're doing is you're artificially manipulating the skin tissue to expand. It's like what they do in plastic surgery when they do a tissue graft or a skin graft. It's called biological creep, right? Or a mechanical creep, sorry. It's called mechanical creep. So you basically, like, you stretch the skin tissue. But skin has this amazing capacity to expand. It's the only organ in your body that can expand. Mm-hmm. And in that newly expanded tissue, new tissue grows, new cells grow. So that creates more capacity. And so you're basically just stretching it And then over time, in that newly stretched skin, new tissue forms, which means more skin, more girth, more length. And then you get more blood flow to the area through the arteries called angiogenesis. And that those three things combined allow you to have a bigger member. It doesn't take a week, right? It takes months and it takes time because you're artificially stretching it. Just like you don't get fat in a week.
Yeah.
You don't build, 17 to 21 inch biceps in a week, right? It takes time for your skin and muscles to grow and stretch. So it is possible. It can stay. I've done it on myself, and a lot of other guys that have worked with me have done it as well. And what I would say to guys is it's important to know that it can be changed and increased, but also like having the confidence to understand that what you have is enough, right? And if you're watching porn, you're going to be consistently reminded that you're not enough, right? And that's just a reality. And so I tell guys, like, you're watching guys that have been hand selected because they have larger penises at birth. They got a golden ticket, great. But you don't know what all other things that they're doing in order to perform that way. So you as a man, your value is not tied to your size. Your worth is not tied to your size. It's difficult because we as a culture, we focus on that a lot, right? Locker rooms, right? Growers and showers, all this sort of stuff, like group showers when you're a kid in high school, like, these things come up and you have to face them as a man, right? And that was a lot of my initial struggles when I was young, was because like, I'm a grower. I grow a hell of a lot, but when I'm flaccid, it's like, not that interesting, right? Or at least I thought. And now I'm in a very different situation where I have confidence and energy around that space. And I've done things to grow it. And I'm like, okay, cool. I feel good about where I'm at. But I know that there are, more than half the population that is not happy with their size because 50% are less than 5 inches or so, and 50% are more than 5 inches or so.
Yeah.
So it's a huge issue, and you just have a lot of compassion around it for guys.
I could definitely relate with the grower, not a shower.
Yeah.
And I used to be insecure about that because I was like, no, I swear, just wait.
Like, no, I promise.
Just wait. But having had enough experiences in my life where it's like, oh, you weren't lying.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, no, I wasn't. I'm telling you.
Exactly.
But like, not much to say when it's flaccid. But
Yeah.
I don't care. Like, it doesn't bother me. But when I was young, it did.
Yeah.
It's like, no, like, I'm not trying to, like, it's not even like about the boys or anything like that. But it's like, that's the time when you're fucking like,
Yeah.
you're talking about showers, all this stuff. It's like, yeah, no, like,
Yeah, you're not going to say that, but wait, guys,
like,
I'm
not going to say that to them, but it's like, but then, with women, it does matter. They're looking at the print.
Sure.
They're sizing you up.
Yeah, are you wearing gray sweatpants? What's going on? And, what I always say is like, like if a girl goes and touches you while you're soft, right? And you're like, yo, like the main event hasn't even happened yet. Like, you got to be patient, right? There's a surprise. You have to let them know, because sometimes women don't even understand that. They're like, oh, like that's it.
That's what
some guys are just big and that's how it is.
Right.
It's cool.
Yeah.
But there's this element of, you got to educate the women a little bit, because sometimes they don't know.
Absolutely.
Right? They're just like, oh, okay, maybe I'm not that interested.
We're gonna wind this down a little bit, but one major topic I do want to discuss before we get off here. What's the impact of social media been for you over these past few years? Like, how's this rise been for you?
Mm-hmm. So number one, it is the greatest. It's the greatest compliment you could ever want, of like that people are really engaged and interested in what it is that I'm doing and what it is that I'm sharing. So it's incredibly invigorating to like my spirit, right? I love it. I'm not doing social media to become famous. I'm doing it because I want to have a global impact. And social media is the greatest tool on earth to spread my message globally, right? We talked about, I have a huge following in India and the Philippines. I'm like, yo, those guys are getting their knowledge on, and I fucking love it, right? So social media is so incredible for that. I've been able to share my messages, whatever it is that I feel is important. Like I have a mouthpiece, and I'm so grateful for that gift. On the negative side, I think a lot of people make assumptions about who I am, what I'm into, etc. Mostly women, I would say. It takes a lot of balls to talk about this stuff on the internet. It takes a lot of balls to get out there and share what I'm sharing. And, I have had sexual experience. I haven't been with one partner. I've been with multiple partners. And the reality is, like, I know that the message that I'm sharing is so much more important, and like I have the humanity and like the service mentality at mind. Women think that I'm a swinger, that I'm polyamorous, that I'm, all these different things that are not true. I'm a, guy that wants to get married, have kids, have a monogamous relationship. I just happen to be expressive in an area that most people are afraid to express in. There are plenty of good lovers out there, plenty. And there are plenty of guys that understand this stuff, but are they the ones that are putting on their hat to educate and share with the world what they know and really advance society and humanity in that way? And like, I really want to do that. When I started this business, I was like, yeah, this is going to be tough because I'm pushing my own edges, my own envelope of like what I feel comfortable with. But at the same time, I know that this is why I'm here, right? And I know this is my message that I want to share with the world, because the world needs it. We are in a very, very tough place right now as men, right? And also relationally, we're moving towards this more insular culture of passivity and not connecting with humans in real life. My entire business, dude, it's all fucking upstream. Don't watch porn. Don't take pharmaceutical drugs. Don't use dating apps. Don't use OnlyFans, right? These things are so pervasive in our culture. It's so easy. It's so fucking easy to do this stuff. And you fall into this trap, right? And my whole thing is like, you have to fight and you have to battle like these demons that are, and also these platforms that are available, which are sapping men of their confidence, their wherewithal, their inner self. Like you just lose yourself in this stuff. So I think as much as social media can be a negative sometimes, I hope that my channel is going to be like a beacon of light, which is like, cool, like this is great stuff. I want to watch this stuff and binge this content because it's helping me as a man, it's helping me as a woman, it's helping me relationally understand myself, and get better in areas that were never taught.
Well, I could tell you, man, I know you probably get flooded with DMs and a lot of outpour of support and probably hate as well. But I can just tell you, sitting here man to man, sitting across from you and having the pleasure of being able to work with you the last few years, build a friendship, it has impacted me. And I fucking appreciate what you do and having the balls, pun intended, to put yourself out there in such a high risk taboo thing that you could just easily be even just selling the supplements or hiding behind whatever, running any other type of business or whatever, and keeping these cards to your chest. I salute you for putting it out there.
Thank you.
But how does it affect your personal relationships? There's got to be a little bit of a preconceived notion. You kind of touched on that a little bit. What's that been like?
I don't always lead with what I do when I meet someone. I let them experience me and see how that flows. It's definitely been challenging because there's this notion like, oh, A, you've been with a lot of women, or B, you are polyamorous, or C, you don't want to be in a relationship, or D, you're going to talk about what we do on your social media platform. And like, none of that is true.
Yeah, right? No, never have you ever brought up an actual specific situation about someone and like any way it could be traced back to anyone ever.
Yeah. So like I have 24 years of not being a virgin, right? And so like I have a lot of experience to come from, but also the 15 years of trainings and teachings that I've done with various masters all around the world where I learned more specific things, right? I went to school for this shit, right? And so the right partner is going to applaud what I do and know that what I'm doing is of service to humanity and get behind it full fucking force, right? And so when I meet women that have that mentality, like, yo, Jackson, I know what you're doing and I fucking love it and I'm down, right? And we have our own private, moments in our private life together. But then when I'm sharing, what I need to share, it's because it's based off of a whole lot of experience that most men don't necessarily have. They're not going to go to these workshops and trainings or whatever and do all this stuff. I'm basically synthesizing that and giving it to you.
Yeah.
But on the relationship side, I do make sure that I front load. Like I give information up front. Like when we do talk about what I do for a living, I share what I do. And then I hear the reaction of like where they're at. And again, I understand there's a lot of compassion. Women go through a lot, like all the questions that they might ask themselves. Is he just a fuck boy? Is he this? Is he that? And, that they need to determine that on their own. But I always say like, look, don't follow my content. Spend time with me. Understand who I am, right?
Right.
There's a persona, right? There is an energy that I create, which is very close to who I am. But like, I'm also very different in real life, right? There's a lot of depth and there's a lot of, I think a lot of people see like the one part of me and there's a whole lot more. And so if a woman doesn't have the desire, interest, or capacity to go deeper, because I'm a deep motherfucker, right? If they don't want to go deep with me, then I know it's not the right fit anyway. So it's actually a great filter.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
How do you want to be remembered?
Ooh. Wow. As changing the face of sexuality in the world. That's the most important thing for me. And a really fucking great dude. But on a professional side, things like, yeah, the most powerful and influential person in the sexual wellness space. And I know that I'm going to get there. Yeah, I can see it.
I'd say you're well on your way, and I'd also say you are a great fucking dude. Jackson, I appreciate you coming on the It's Not That Deep podcast. This is the first of many. We're going to do a lot of these. I had a blast today. I learned a lot. I had a wonderful conversation with you. Where can people find you?
Website is naturaljackson.com. Social media at @GetNaturalJackson across every platform.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Just remember, it's not that deep. Unless you're Jackson, of course. He gets that deep. Love it. Thanks, brother.
Dude, that was amazing.
Yes, man.
Awesome.